Hi guys, this is Kai, and we're going to be talking a little bit today about blending with brushes. Now, there's a lot of ways that you can blend, but today, mostly just focusing on the way that we can blend with our brushes. This is a tutorial mostly set up for beginners, but you will need to have a little bit of understanding about Photoshop, like where to get your brushes, such as up here in your windows, find your brushes, just like that. Mine are over here. This little tool here, and I'm only going to be using brushes that come with Photoshop right now anyway, so none of my so-called special brushes like over here in my tool presets, I'm not really going to be touching these, so I'm just mainly going to be using the Photoshop brushes that come with Photoshop. So as I was saying, this is mostly, we're looking at this as a beginner type of tutorial, so let's get started. As you can see right over here, we're mostly going to be talking about a few different ways of blending, mostly with the brushes, just right in here. And the first one we're going to be talking about is going to be the eyedropper tool. So I'm just going to grab my marquee tool, little rectangle, bring it over here, and I'm going to fill it in with a color. Doesn't really matter what color. Right now I just have a round brush, as you can see. I'm just going to fill this in, and let's take a different color, fill this in on this side. Now, since we're not going to be talking about layers really too much, I will show you this. This is called a transparency lock. If we lock that transparency for this layer, we can add any color on top of this and it won't go outside the line. So that's really what this transparency lock up here does. So nice little tool to use. Anyway, eyedropper. So where you get your eyedropper is right over here on your Alt. And by the way, I'm using a Mac, so that's where all of my shortcuts come from. If I hit my little Alt key, you can see this little eyedropper tool popping up. Now what that does is, if you look over here on my little colorist color wheel, if I hit this, you can see it will move the color to whatever color I'm hitting. So I'm doing is going back and forth and tapping it, and it automatically selects that color. So with that in mind, this is the way a lot of artists actually blend. So, I probably need to show you, see if these are actually set up properly too. So anytime that you're going to be using a brush with whatever sort of tablet that you're going to be using, you're going to need transfer to be put on, and luckily this is on already. And what transfer does is it allows me to paint either hard and get a really opaque line, or I can just paint softly and get a nice light line where it's going to, the color underneath is really going to be bleeding through. So that's what you're really going to need, is the transfer to be selected. So what I'm going to do to start is I'm just going to select the red. I'm just going to kind of bring it over here. Oops. Let me take that off. Get back onto my layer with these colors. I'm just going to select that red. I'm just going to kind of bring it over here a little bit. I'm just kind of lightly doing it, as you can see. Then I'm going to select that blue, kind of bring it back and forth. And this is really just how you're going to be using the eyedropper tool to blend colors together. And I'm just kind of lightly tapping, and what you're really kind of looking to do is get that little gradient effect. Where it's going to be a nice smooth blend. Let's use this little airbrush here to see how this works. I'm going to expand my brush. I use a lot of shortcuts, and so making my brush bigger or smaller, I'm just using my bracket keys. And my right bracket key makes it bigger, my left bracket key makes it smaller. I'm just going to kind of go over this a little bit. Your airbrush is a nice tool to have because it'll let you make things a little bit more smooth. But of course, if you use an airbrush, if you have any texture in here, it's going to kind of wipe out your texture. So be aware of that also. So that's really all you're looking for with the eyedropper tool, is that ability to kind of just select a color, and as you go, just kind of bring it over, just like that. Next tool that we can use is going to be our smudge tool. This does a lot of the same thing, but probably a little bit faster. So let me do this real quick. Let's go ahead and let's get that harder edge brush. Ooh, I don't like that one. It's got this right here is your shape dynamics. It's going to make this line go a little bit tighter. If I turn that off, it'll make that bigger. So your brush size bigger and not a small one. So I'm going to use that. So anyway, get back on here. I'm just going to put these back so we have a nice hard edge, like so. Now what your smudge tool does, it's located right over here in your tools. Right here, smudge. Hit that. What it's going to do here is just kind of give a nice smooth smudge, just like that. Kind of does it really fast. As I said before, you can use any brush really if you want to. So let's say I use this one. A little more of a textured brush. Let's go back. Take some of these smudges away and see how this affects it. Now with this one, we may have to up the strength a little bit. There we go. And yeah, when you use your smudge tool, sometimes you're going to have to apply your strength to things. Now this one gets a little bit different, so we may actually have to adjust the brush itself in order to get something different. So as we can see, the transfer is not on, so let's select that and see what that does. Not too much of a change. So let's mess with scattering. Scattering is going to kind of take the brush and expand it out in a few different directions, and you can control your scattering just like that. We're not going to go too much on that, just a little bit. We'll see what happens. And already you can see a big difference in that. But once again, it's going to take away any sort of texture that you have. So that's what you kind of got to play with any of these tools. It depends on how you want to affect whatever painting you're painting. Let's take scattering back off. And let's mess with up here, finger painting. You can see finger painting will do a little bit different, but it'll add a bit more, allowing that texture to come through of the brush itself too. And what you're going to find with all of these things is you really need to play with your settings, play with your strength, play with all the little buttons, and see what it is you like the best. I mean, that's really the only way that you can do it. Once you have an understanding of where these things are and how the brushes are really affected, you just got to sit and play with them. So that's really the smudge brush, or the smudge tool I should say. Another thing that we can use is the eraser to help blend things. So let's fix this real quick. What I mean by that is, let's say let's get an airbrush here. Make sure there we go, that'll work. It's kind of an elliptical airbrush, but airbrush nonetheless. You can see how it works. So let's say I want to put another color on this, just like that. So I just run that right over top, but I don't like how much is over here. If I take my airbrush or take my eraser, and I'm going to take my one eraser and my tools right here because I kind of like this one. Actually, let's go up. Now, one thing I'm going to have to show you right here is I'm going to go up in a layer in order to really use the eraser. Learn to speak English. If you want to use the eraser tool to kind of help blend things, you're going to have to start in a new layer. So, as I was saying right here, we're in a new layer. Let's do it like this. Let's go ahead and go back to hard. A hard tool, just like that. If I take my eraser and I want this to kind of blend in with the red and the blue, I can just get a nice soft eraser, just kind of like that, just kind of moving it. With this one, I have it set to where enough of it kind of is taken off when I just tap it, but we can probably use a different one also. So there's that. Let's try one off of here. So let's go back. There we go. Yeah. So with this eraser, I don't like the settings on this. I'd have to play with the settings, but you can kind of get a feel for how it works. Just running it right across there, and it automatically blends it in just by using the eraser tool like that. Now another one that we can use is the fader. So imagine let's take this all the way over here. There we go. So with the fader, how we activate this, and the thing about the fader is it only works on one stroke. So if you, as soon as you lift your stroke and you do another stroke, it's not going to work for both of those strokes. You're actually going to have to be aware that it's only going to work on one stroke. So if I take this, let's go with an Airbrush. If I take this tool and I go hard, but maybe I don't like how hard I did it. Okay. Now I have not lifted my brush up. I'm still going back and forth. I haven't lifted it up yet. Let's say I don't like how hard I did it. I can Shift Command F, and this little thing will pop up, and I can adjust how dark or light that I want that one stroke to be. Just like that. What's cool about this is you can also change that one stroke to a certain mode, which we're not going to get into too much, but let's say I wanted it to be a little bit darker. I could turn it to multiply, lighten, screen, and just kind of be aware that that's there. You know, maybe we'll talk about that in another tutorial sometime, but right now mostly just looking about the opacity of it. So we can just change how opaque that one stroke is with that. So if we go to let's go to something different, green, we do a hard stroke just like that, Shift Command F, and I just bring down that opacity. Just like that. And that's your fader. The last one we're going to talk about is the mixer brush. So, the mixer brush is located right underneath your brushes, down here where it says mixer brush. Now, as soon as you hit mixer brush, you're going to have a lot of tools that pop up here, and as I said before, you're going to have to just kind of mess around and play with them. All of these will adjust the tool and change it a little bit, and you'll have different reactions to it. So let's actually just get out of... I'm not even going to lock this anymore, so we're just going to make a nice fun mess. So with the mixer brush, let's get... That'll be a good one. Oh, let's put it on transfer though. Okay. Actually, I don't like that. Let's use this one. And that will need to be transfer. Okay. Of course, I accidentally switched off of my mixer brush. Okay. If you're on transfer, sometimes I noticed it didn't pop up that it was on pin pressure, so you have to go over here and select pin pressure. Now it'll allow you kind of get that nice controlled opaque stroke. So anyway, let's go up here and take a look at the mixer brush sets, little buttons and tools. This one says load the brush after each stroke. So what that basically means is that every time that you stroke, it's going to load the brush with color. So if that's pressed in, that's what that does. Pressed out, it's not going to do it. This one, probably the exact, actually it's going to clean the brush, I believe. So let's try this again. Yeah, it'll clean the brush, so it should, if you have a color on it, it will clean the brush after you stroke. But this, you can even set it to clean the brush, so just like that. So let's say we go over this. Notice it already had green on it, so let's clean the brush. Now it didn't have anything on it, right? This is kind of what the mixer brush does. But you have to kind of mess around with the settings to really kind of get what you want. But what's cool about the mixer brush is if you really want some texture to be put into it, different types of brushes you can use to get a nice cool texture. Let's do something fun where we set our brush up. It's wet, so it means it's going to kind of run a little bit. You can see, just like that. You can get some really fun smudges and smears and painterly effects using this type of brush. So it's like any of the other brushes. Just want to kind of mess around with it. Since I put this on a different layer though, just watch what happens if I turn on the layer. Turn it on and off. Now if I did that all on this layer right here, I wouldn't be able to do that, but that's the beauty of layers. So anyway, that's the mixer brush. Play around with these things. See if you like them. See what you do like. Notice in my tool presets, I have a few that I have already set up for me. Things that I like to kind of just mess around with. They do different things. And once you kind of get playing with Photoshop, you might end up using some of these things too. I don't use all of these by any means, but some of them are fun to use. This one, I kind of like this one. There's a nice kind of wet stroke, and you can get, like I said, you can get a lot of texture if you're trying to do something painterly in this. So, really fun. All right, so let's see how we might use some of these techniques. We'll just speed this next part up. We'll do a little drawing of a female head. That way we can kind of work on those techniques. So let's just take, let's go basic skin tone. And since you guys have an idea of the brushes, I'm just going to use some of the ones that I already have here. A bit darker. Oops. I'll tell you what we might want to do. It's actually put our line layer on top and our painting layer underneath. It might help me actually a little bit. Okay, so we take a little skin tone. Let's get a little darker. There we go. That'll work. So we take a basic skin tone. Right now I'm just trying to press on this kind of hard to make the paint opaque, so I don't get loads of kind of different types of opacities. As you see, if I go light and then I go over top, it'll make it a little bit odd. So just kind of filling it in. And I guess we can give her some hair too, huh? So we'll just do this real quick. Just so we can have something to play around with. We're not going to finish this painting off or anything. Just kind of go and show you how some of these techniques might be used when we are doing a painting. And I guess we got to mess around with the eyes a little bit, don't we? Kind of at least get a feel for some of this stuff. And let's give her blue eyes, why not? Alright, so let's see. I know it's kind of dirty, but that's going to work for us. So first way we blend with brushes was the eyedropper tool. So let's take a look at that. So what I might do is I might just want to start doing, let's do some shading with the eyedropper tool. So what I'll first do is just going to do a little clipping mask to this. What a clipping mask does is kind of like what the transparency does, but it does it on a different layer. Like if this is clipped to this section, I can draw anywhere I want, but it's only going to be stuck inside of what it's clipped to. So that's what's kind of nice about that. So anyway, clip to that. And what I'm going to do is I'll take my brush and I'm going to eyedrop it, getting the basic color that I'm looking for, but I'm just going to move it down a little bit here. Move it down and to the right. And then what I'm going to do is just kind of give her some shadow. Just like that. Now, whenever you're doing this, I'm sure you're going to hear hard shadows versus soft shadows. I'm not going to worry too much about really talking about that too much, but you can kind of see how this works. So let's do this. So since the hair is right here, this might be a hard shadow, so that basically means that we're going to have a little bit of an edge to it. But over here, right, it's going to need to be a little bit softer. So what I'm going to do is, just like what we did in the square earlier, I'm going to tap this, kind of go over this, tap, 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 and just really kind of blending to round the face a little bit. Just right in here, and just kind of rounding it. I could go right there. And that's all it is just tapping and blending, tapping and blending. A little bit on their eyes. Like that. We won't end up finishing this little painting, but we'll take a little look at it. See how that works. And so the opposite will go with this as well. So that's for the shading. What if we want to do a little bit of highlights? Take a little eyedrop of the local color. Local color meaning that basically kind of the medium color of the object itself. No, not the highlight, not the shadow, but the color that the object actually is. So the local color, I took a little eyedropper of that. I'm going to move it up and to the left a little bit, and we're just going to add a little bit of highlights. And all I'm doing right there is I'm just kind of making it kind of a hard light right now. And then we're going to go back and we're going to play around with the blending of it. So we have some of this, some of here. That'll work. Okay. So I drop that local color, blend it. I drop some of this light color and blend that a little bit. That's all I'm going to be doing. Just kind of tapping, blending, tapping, blending, tapping, blending. And that transfer is actually going to help you quite a lot on this as well, because if you didn't have the transfer on, you wouldn't be able to have as much control of your pen tool. Not your pen tool, but your little stylus. Just like that. And she's looking a little bit odd. Let's add a little bit of color to her just for fun. There we go. End up having to put little finishing touches on this later or something. I don't know. Okay. Give her a little color in those cheeks. That nose. Just so she has a little bit of color. I'm just lightly tapping for that. But what you'll see is, if I continue with this, that red will kind of blend in as well. And that's really what the skin is. The skin is, it's loads of different colors. It's not just one color. It's why a lot of beginning artists, whenever they begin painting, you know, they have this idea that the skin is one color. It's just tan with highlights and shadows. Well, it's not. It's red, it's blue, it's orange. It's got all this blood underneath the skin moving around. And what if you get cold? What if you get hot? It's just a menagerie of color. So that's really what you're looking to do, is give the skin a little bit of color whenever you're trying to play with the skin. Okay, that's good enough for now. So what's next on our list? Smudge tool. Okay, so if we get in here, tell you what, let's do this again. We'll add a little bit more shine. Just did that eyedrop tool. A little bit more shine here. Let's put some shine there. Put some shine there. Another shine there. So if we're going to use the smudge tool, I'm just going to use a shortcut. I have a... Where do I have? Yeah, I have a shortcut on my smudge tool. So I have it on in. Sometimes your shortcuts, you may or may not have the same ones as me. I have I think the only one I might have changed is my mixer brush. I put that on M. And if you're ever interested in finding out what your shortcuts are, or if you'd like to change your shortcuts, there's plenty of tutorials on YouTube. But if you're interested, you can go up to Edit, go down to Keyboard Shortcuts, And this will bring up a little panel. And what you're looking for is Photoshop defaults, and then you're going to go to tools. And then you can already see all of your stuff right here. And each of these right over here are your shortcuts. So you can change your shortcuts and all that. What you're going to find out though is that, let's say, I changed my shortcut of the mixer brush to M, which I think it used to be the marquee tool, but I don't really use the marquee that much. Right, well, I use put it this way, I use the mixer brush more often. Plus, I have it right there next to my brush and my smudge tool, so I can kind of hit that on my keyboards a little bit faster. And that's something that you may or may not want to do. It all depends on how you work your inside of your own style and what works best for you. So you'll figure that out as you go along. So anyway, if you want to do that, check out a tutorial on changing keyboard shortcuts. So if we go to our smudge tool, I'm just going to go into my tool presets on this. So hit my M for my my smudge tool, because that's my keyboard shortcut, and let's go. Oh wait, there we go. Sorry, smudge. That might be nice. Okay. With my smudge tool, I have this one set up, and I'll kind of show you how I have this one set up. It's really just a hard circle. I have my shape dynamics, a little bit of size jitter. My scattering is on just a bit, about 74%, somewhere around there. My transfer is on, and that's my smoothing is on. I think that's really about it. So if we go back in here, and I'm going to just kind of lightly, oh wait, also up here, what you're going to find is you can adjust your strength with your smudge as well. So if it's really hard, then it's going to go crazy. If it's softer like this one, this is going to kind of be the result. Just might kind of smooth it in, and it just kind of smooths it around a little bit. It looks like it about loses it, but let's see if we get a little bit closer. If you can notice some of these lines that I already have, the smudge tool will kind of smooth all this stuff out as well. It all depends on what you like, what you want to do with your character, how do you want to render the character, all that stuff. But you can kind of see how the smudge tool works. And it's the same with going back to my brush tool. If we want to do shadow, let's say I get a hard shadow. Oops, that's kind of ugly, isn't it? If I get a hard shadow in here, and I don't want it to be that hard, go back to my smudge tool. I'm just going to kind of lightly go over top the edge here, like so. And you may end up finding that you use one of these tools more than the other. You might find out that you use every one of them. I actually use every one of them pretty much every time I paint. So that is the smudge, kind of using it. However, if we wanted that to disappear to be smoother, we could do that just like that. And then the next one, so an eraser. So let's add another layer to this. Let's say with my brush, let's make a really bright highlight right in there. Oops, I don't want it that much. So I'm going to grab my eraser and maybe like your airbrush, just like that. Be a good low eraser for it. Oops, I don't like that one. Shape dynamics is on. Shape dynamics will make that really tight at the end. That's why I got those. I'll take those off, make sure my transfer is on. Of course, that's not on pin pressure. I'm just going to kind of lightly go over top of the edge, just like that. Just like so. Since I already have my other erasers up here, I'm just going to kind of use that so I can show you a little bit faster. So E for my eraser tool presets to come up, and my little tapper. I'm just going to tap this a little bit. And see, with this you can actually blend pretty well. But it's all however you want to do that. So that's blending with the eraser. Fade tool. Let's go with, back to my brushes, hitting B for brush. Grabbing one of my tools, one of my brushes, just a round brush really. It's a little bit softer. So let's say I want to go dark right in here with a shadow. Ooh, too much though, right? So Shift Command F. I'm just going to bring that down a little bit. Just bring that down a little bit. Just like that. But maybe I don't like that right there, so then I can go to my eraser, take that away. So a lot of the times you're going to be using these tools all combined. A little bit of one, a little bit of another. So let's say, do that there. Shift Command F. Let's bring that down a little bit. There we go. Maybe I take my eraser again. I tap that on that side. Nice, cool. Then the mixer brush. So I'm gonna grab once again over here. It's underneath your brushes. Mixer. However you get it set up. Actually, let's go with. I don't use this mixer brush all the time, so. As you can see, whenever I'm tapping with my eyedropper tool, even with the mixer brush, it's kind of selecting it up here. Just take a look right here as I'm hitting. Saying that, so right now this mixer brush is loading. It's loading a color, so I might have that, but if I hit this, it's going to load that color. And like I said, with the mixer brush, it's one of those things that you just have to keep playing around with to see what really kind of works. So if I'm in here messing around, but what you'll get with it is might be a little bit more of a painterly effect. So watch, I'm kind of getting a little bit of a texture with this one, just because of the way it's doing. Let's see the rake. This one, how's this one set up? Yeah, slight changes, kind of hard to see a little bit, but it works similar to a regular brush, but you know, you get this wet, bleeding kind of painterly feel to it. So, I guess we can mess around with her a little bit for a second, huh? Right now I'm just kind of using the eyedropper method. I use that quite a lot, use that more often than anything. I think you'll find most artists probably do. It's just constantly selecting what's already on. You know, you might even start with a palette, a color palette, but eventually kind of moving to using the colors that are already on your canvas. But what also we can do is, I should have added this over here, number 6. Let's go with number 6 here. And that's blending modes. For brushes. Oh, the handwriting is awesome. So, take a look over here at your layers panel. Right here is your blending modes for your layers. All these different ones right here. Well, you can actually do the same thing for your brushes. Over here, let's get rid of that. Over here, while I'm selected on my brushes, you can change your blending modes of your brush. Now, what does that do? Okay, so let's go back to the beginning, kind of using a little marquee tool so we can kind of see how this stuff is affected. Let's do a small one so we can kind of get a feel for these things. All I'm going to do now is I'm just going to kind of clone this this layer. I'm going to do Command J, which you'll see is it just kind of makes a few of these. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to grab this one, V. I'm just going to move it over to the side. Move this one over to the side. If I can move it to the side, there we go. That don't have to be perfect, does it? Let's hope not. Try not to judge me. Oh, let's do one more. Command J, clone it. There's one. Okay, good enough. Be nice if we had these in order, though, huh? Guess it really doesn't matter too much. We can just merge all these. What I'm doing to merge all these is I highlighted them all. Command E, that merges all those into one layer. Okay. So I'm going to lock the transparency on this, and then we're just going to take our brush. Let me see what we got here. There we go. Okay, so in our brush modes, our blending modes, you'll see there's a few different things. Now, I don't use all of these at all. I use a few from each. I'll usually use multiply. I will use screen sometimes, color dodge, linear dodge, overlay, and I think that's usually what I use. Now, if you want to try all these out and see how they kind of work, I would definitely suggest that. And a good way to do it is bringing up balls like this and then trying them on each ball so you can kind of see the difference. Now, I will give you a hint about these blending modes. The way I kind of look at them is this, and I could be absolutely totally wrong, but hey, you know, that's just how it rolls. This little section right here, from darken down to darker color, I usually look at this section as a darkening kind of blending mode. So like if I want to make one of these circles a little bit darker, I would choose one of these inside of this. If I wanted to make it a little bit lighter, I would choose right in here or even in here. So these are kind of more lighter and whatnot. Now color dodge, linear dodge, those will just blow the lights right off the door. So those are fun to use, but you got to be careful with those. So anyway, these are more for lightening your object or your character or whatever it is that you're going to be painting. This is more for darkening. So we'll take a look at some of these, how they really kind of work. So we got our transparency lock on. And as I was saying, here I use multiply a lot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the eyedropper tool, I'm going to select that local color, I'm going to bring it down just a little bit. And what multiply does actually is you can almost kind of see through it, see through the object. So let's do this real quick. In order to see, you can kind of understand what I mean by being able to see through. Let's find something, texture. All I'm looking for right here in my brush pack is, or my tool presets, is some sort of texture. I have way too many in here. I don't even use half of these. So okay, let's do this one. Nope, I don't like that one. I'm just looking for something with kind of speckles. Oops, where'd it go? Spatter. It might work. Spatter. There we go. So I'm just going to add some of the spatter to it. And that way we can kind of see what happens in the dark and light. And I'll make a little bit of some light ones in there too. Alrighty. So I'm going to just go back to a little round brush. And I'll put this back on multiply. I'll take that local color. Actually, let's just write this down here. I have to put this to normal, multiply. That way you guys can kind of see what happens with each one. So multiply. Take that local color again, like I've said 5 times already. I'm just going to kind of lightly go over top of it. Now what you can see is the texture is still going to come through. So it's eventually you can kind of just kill it and get the dark, but what that'll do is that, versus if we have this on normal, you know, it's going to kind of bleed that out automatic as it does, as opposed to this. The multiply, it darkens while you're able to see through, so it's still transparent. And that's what's cool about that. So I do a lot of shading with multiply. Like I said, you can do this inside of layers, and I kind of do a combination of both. We won't get into that with the layers, but I do a combination of both. I'll use brush modes as well as layer blending modes. So anyway, so that's what that looks like. Now if you want to see what, you know, a lighter one does, not really all that beautiful. I mean, I guess it will work. You can use it. I'm sure that there's instances, but I usually don't use multiply for that. But trust me, I'm sure somebody does. And so we'll move on to the next one. So let's see what we're going to do. I'll show you the ones that I usually use. We'll do a color dodge here. Oops. No, with color dodge is more of a lighting one. So we're down here, we're kind of in the light. Take a little touch of that local color. Oops, wrong layer. Might be nice if I did the right layer. Just like that. As you can see, it lightens it. But watch what happens. Oof, you're just going to kind of blow it out. You know, if you like, you know, if you're painting the sun, that might work. I don't know. But yeah, color dodge, you just kind of have to have a light touch. If I can stop getting to the wrong layer. Just a nice little light touch. It all depends on what you're really going for here. So that's color dodge. Let's do, I think, a linear dodge. Linear dodge. If I can spell linear dodge, we can kind of see the difference with that. Linear dodge. Here we go. Select that local color. I'm going to bring it up into the left a little bit. We'll see what it does. It's kind of similar, right? But not as red as over here, right? But you can still kind of see through it, and that's what you're looking for, especially if you're doing texture you're looking to be able to kind of see what's underneath that light. You know, you might be wanting to use this if you're adding light to a character or something. But there you go, linear dodge. Overlay. I use overlay quite a bit. So that's a fun one to use. Go back here. Alright, overlay. And once again, we're kind of more in that lighting. The lighting of an object, lighting of a character. I will say this. I've used overlay in dark ways also. So, you know, it's really all depending. So let me bring it over here. You can kind of see, you can get this like really warm darkening sort of feel to it, you know. Let's bring it over here a little bit more unsaturated, see what happens. So you can use overlay for a few different things. It all depends on what you like. You know, you can kind of take a peek at, you know, depending, overlay versus multiply. Excuse me, but yeah, once again, it's all about kind of playing with how things react to something. So let me see, which ones other than that do I use? Not too much. This dissolve is kind of interesting. It does like almost takes your brush and makes it I don't know, scattery, like sandy, I guess. I've used that before, kind of for certain effects. Might even could use it for some kind of a skin, because it's got that noise feel to it. It's kind of interesting though. So I might want to actually write these down, huh? So this was also overlay. And this was dissolve. How do we spell it? Is it 2 S's or 1? 2? That. So once again, just kind of take a look, see how these blending modes will work for you. You know, just for fun. If you're into Star Wars, like everybody is. If you're not, you might be a Nazi. I don't know. How does that work? Anyway, so let's go to color dodge. Let's go something a little bit lighter. Let me grab a soft brush, like an airbrush. How do I have this listed on here? I actually have to think about it. Soft, I think that's it, right? Okay. I don't know if that's really doing it too well, is it? Let's do linear add. There we go. So there you go. Nice little lightsaber action for you. Linear dodge. Good stuff. Star Wars. Yes. All right. Well, that's all I have for you guys right now. I hope you guys like this tutorial. If you do, let me know. Love to hear from you guys. Thanks a lot.